What if I told you your favourite pint of ice cream has a secret? A secret buried beneath layers of chocolate chunks, caramel swirls, and corporate control. This isn't just a story about dessert, it's a story about rebellion, about two men who tried to make ice cream into a weapon for change, and the global empire that tried to silence them. Our story begins in the 1970s in Merrick, Long Island. Two childhood friends, Ben Cohen and Jerry Greenfield, met in a 7th grade gym class. Both were a little awkward, a little idealistic, and both were searching for something more. Ben was an artist, a dreamer who dropped out of college and drifted between jobs, eventually taking up pottery. Jerry was a science kid, calm, methodical, working as a lab tech, still hoping to find his purpose. And then one day, they decided to chase something sweet. In 1977, they scraped together $12,000, $4,000 each in cash, and the rest in loans. And they took a $5 mail-order ice cream course from Penn State. They opened their first scoop shop in a renovated gas station in Burlington, Vermont, in 1978. It was humble, paint peeling, counters secondhand, free cones on anniversaries because they didn't know what else to do. It was an American dream story, the kind you see in Hallmark movies. Two friends, a crazy idea, and a scoop of optimism. But there was something different about Ben and Jerry. They weren't just selling ice cream. They wanted to use their business as a force for good. Ben had a problem. He couldn't smell. He has a rare medical condition named anosmia. So he built his flavours not by scent, but by texture. That's why every pint was loaded with chunks, swirls, and mix-ins. Ice cream that felt alive in your mouth. But that sense of feeling extended far beyond food. From the beginning, Ben and Jerry believed business should have a soul. They set up a 3-part mission. 1. Product mission. Make great ice cream. 2. Economic mission. Share success with employees and community. 3. Social mission. Make the world better. Their activism grew just as fast as their flavours. They funded campaigns for LGBTQ+ rights, supported racial equality, backed climate justice, and created ice cream flavours to raise awareness. I Do, celebrated marriage equality. Save Our World pushed climate action. Justice Remixed stood against racial inequity. They even got arrested, literally arrested, for what they believed in. April 2016. Hundreds of protesters gather outside the US Capitol for a rally called Democracy Awakening, a movement demanding voting rights and campaign finance reform. Among the crowds are two men you wouldn't expect to see there. No suits, no corporate handlers, just two middle-aged guys with warm smiles now holding cardboard signs. Ben Cohen and Jerry Greenfield. Yes, that Ben and Jerry are handcuffed by Capitol Police and escorted away. Their crime? Civil disobedience in the name of democracy. Ben later wrote on their website, "The history of our country is that nothing happens until people start putting their bodies on the line and risk getting arrested." It wasn't the last time. In 2025, Ben was arrested again, this time for protesting US involvement in the Gaza conflict. He was dragged out of a Senate hearing, shouting about children dying in bombings. They weren't just making statements, they were living their values. And that's what made them dangerous, not to the government, but to the corporation that owned them. By the year 2000, Ben & Jerry's had become a phenomenon, adored for its flavours and admired for its ethics. But success brought pressure. Stockholders wanted more growth, more profit, and eventually a buyout, when multinational giant Unilever made an offer, roughly $326 million. It seemed inevitable. But Ben & Jerry didn't just sell their company, they made a deal with conditions. They agreed, but only if Ben & Jerry's retained an independent board dedicated to its social mission. That board would have final say over anything that affected the brand's values, from ingredient sourcing to political statements. Unilever would control the operations and money, but not the message. It was a strange marriage. Ice cream idealism meets corporate machinery. For a while, it worked. Ben & Jerry's continued its activism, from Black Lives Matter to refugee rights. But then, cracks began to show. In 2021, Ben & Jerry's made a bold statement. We believe it's inconsistent with our values to sell ice cream in the occupied Palestinian territories. They decided to stop sales in Israeli settlements, a move they framed as human rights-based and not anti-Israel. The backlash was immediate. Politicians accused them of anti-Semitism. Governors threatened to pull state investments from Unilever. Israeli licensees called it discrimination. Under pressure, Unilever overrode the independent board and sold the Israeli distribution rights anyway, allowing Ben & Jerry's ice cream to continue being sold under Hebrew and Arabic branding. The board said they were betrayed. They sued their parent company, claiming Unilever violated the merger agreement and hijacked their social mission. Ben Cohen publicly stated, "When you sell your company, you expect the buyer to keep their word." Unilever has not kept its word. The once sweet partnership had turned bitter. Behind the scenes, tension grew. The independent board said Unilever had begun blocking statements, removing posts, and pressuring executives to stay quiet on controversial issues, particularly anything related to Israel or Palestine. They claimed the corporation was silencing the very values it promised to protect. By 2024, the board had filed another lawsuit, alleging that Unilever had threatened board members, overridden their social mission, and interfered with their right to speak on humanitarian issues. The same company that built its empire on values was now accused of burying them. Meanwhile, Unilever was expanding its other brands, like Magnum, a luxury ice cream that symbolized indulgence and profit. Behind that shiny gold wrapper, activists accused Unilever of child labor in cocoa farms, deforestation from palm oil, and greenwashing environmental claims. It was a chilling irony. One ice cream brand silenced for activism, while another thrived on exploitation. By 2025, the strain became too much. Co-founder Jerry Greenfield, the quieter, steadier half of the duo, announced he was leaving. He said he could no longer be part of a company that had been silenced and stripped of its moral independence. His departure felt like the end of an era. The man who once stood handcuffed beside his best friend now walked away from the business they built together. And yet, Ben stayed. Ben Cohen remained, still part of the fight, still pushing Unilever in court to honour its promises, still trying to prove that social mission and business could coexist, even under the crushing weight of corporate control. To understand why this story matters, you have to see the pattern. Unilever owns dozens of global brands, from Magnum and Hellmann's to Dove, Axe and Lipton. It markets itself as sustainable and ethical. But critics argue that behind the slogans lie supply chains laced with deforestation, exploitation, and plastic pollution. Ben & Jerry's was supposed to be the exception, the conscience of capitalism. Instead, it became a case study in how corporations absorb and neutralize dissent, buy the activists, own their voice, and turn a rebellion into a product. That's what makes this story haunting, because it's not just about ice cream, it's about every brand that tells you it cares. Every company that says, "We're on your side," and how easily that message melts away under heat. Today, the lawsuits between Ben & Jerry's independent board and Unilever continue. The outcome is still uncertain. Unilever has announced plans to spin off its ice cream division by the end of 2025, a move that could separate Ben & Jerry's entirely. But whether that's freedom or exile remains to be seen. Jerry has left the table, but Ben remains, still fighting for what's left of their dream. Two childhood friends, a $5 course, a scoop shop in a gas station, and a global corporation trying to drown their mission in profit. The question isn't whether Ben & Jerry's will survive. The question is whether any company, no matter how idealistic, can stay pure in a system built on power and greed. Because sometimes, even the sweetest things hide the darkest truths.